present a treat for you and for me. This is the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Grande Tradition Gyrotourbillon 3 180th Anniversary Limited Edition of 75. This watch debuted at SIHH 2013, and you'll note the signature at 6 o'clock on the dial, 1833 to 2013. 180 years of the manufacturer Jaeger-LeCoultre in La Sentier, and this watch was a fitting tribute to 180 glorious years of invention. 43.5 millimeters across the round of the case in platinum extra white, it should be noted. The watch is 15.5 millimeters thick on the wrist, but its most wearable dimension is the 51 millimeter lug-to-lug span, such that even on my 6 1/3 inch, 16 centimeter wrist, the watch isn't overbearing. It's heavy, but it simply isn't going to overlap a small wrist like mine. It's thoughtfully designed, specifically the lug shape, for smaller forearms, so even down to 14.5 centimeters, you're likely to wear this one with great security and a sense of proportion. Now, it's also beautifully counterbalanced as we turn over the rectangular scale monotone stitch navy blue alligator leather strap, counterbalanced here by an 18-karat white gold double deployment clasp that may be the most over-engineered single piece of componentry that I've ever experienced on a luxury watch. Now, white gold is stronger than platinum, which is why it's used in this application. And you'll note, double swing arm architecture. So far, not a revolutionary difference from anything else in the JL catalog. JLC featuring this double deployment design almost universally, nevertheless, gets very serious when we arrive at the actual buckle portion. Here, you begin to understand why this clasp has 100 parts in its own right. Now, consider this. When you open up the structure, you now get access to a gear and rack system that allows incremental adjustment, much like the system first seen on 2010's Master Compressor Extreme Lab 2. This one is more sophisticated than that one. That one was a incremental adjustment based on a cam. This one has a rack and gears that slides with a beautifully creamy action, allowing you to set not just the correct size of the clasp to suit the size of your wrist, but incrementally adjust the fine-tuning of the clasp to suit your circumstances, hot, cold, active, inactive. And because it is such a substantial clasp, so massive, it nicely counterbalances the heavy platinum case of the watch, so it's almost like a sailboat with a keel. It has no tendency to want to capsize or turn over. Counterbalance, it sits secure and poised, again, even on my smaller wrist, and it sits secure and resplendent. You'll note, contrasting finish, brushed satin on the sides and between the lugs. It also features a beautifully contrasting polish along the inwardly curved concave bezel and the step of the case where it abuts the bezel, more or less continuing that polished character line straight onto the lugs for a masculine fluted pattern that gives it a little bit more visual character, articulation, animus, and of course with high polish on both flanks and tops of the lugs. It's extremely strong from an aesthetic standpoint. It makes a powerful statement at the periphery of the case, but it is the dial of the watch that dominates proceedings. The dial itself dominated principally by the caliber 176 manufacture movement. Of course, the star of the show is the Gyrotourbillon. This watch, being the Gyrotourbillon 3, for those who are keeping score, is actually the 10th of the Hybris Mechanica ultra haute de gamme concept watch series, which started with the Gyrotourbillon 1 in 2004. Now, that watch introduced the concept of the biaxial tourbillon, which effectively takes the tourbillon back to the chronometric principles of Abraham Louis Breguet in 1795. Now, he created the tourbillon along one axis for pocket watches, which would sit at one orientation in a vest pocket all day long, so it was only necessary to turn the escapement in one direction top to bottom with respect to gravity. But wristwatches exist in a more dynamic environment. They take many angles with respect to gravity, so if you want to cancel its effect on the isochronism of the balance, you need to move the escapement on a wristwatch through many orientations with respect to gravity. So you have two axes. One is a 24-second circuit, and the other is a 60-second circuit. Inside, a refinement that puts JLC on a plane, frankly, occupied by no other watchmakers at the moment. A spherical hairspring improves on the cylindrical hairspring of 2008's Gyrotourbillon 2 Reverso. The spherical hairspring has the advantages of beating concentrically and centering its mass, meaning that the watch has less positionally induced timing variation as a result of gravity. Combine the gyrotourbillon with the spherical hairspring, and you have exceptional chronometric performance in a mechanism that is quite frankly breathtaking. Now, it is a fully shock-protected balance, the balance in blued 14-karat gold, and you'll note that the cage itself, featuring gorgeous polished anglage throughout its space frame structure, is created by hand from aluminum for exceptionally light weight. Now, you'll note the watch is not just a gyrotourbillon, that's spectacular, but it combines a digital jumping minutes chronograph scale at 9 o'clock. As the Lancet second hands crosses the threshold, the watch jumps minutes on its double-disc digital scale. Not just a chronograph, but an exceptionally refined one. You'll note you can also press the mono pusher at 2 o'clock, watch the column wheel just above the dial, cycling the functions, and resetting instantaneously. You'll note the jumping mechanism is visible and can be seen in action just beneath the dial scale. There's a beautiful sunray pattern to the dial, and it's nicely counterbalanced aesthetically on the other side of the case, because Jaeger-LeCoultre has taken the gyrotourbillon concept past the moon and the stars since 2004, but this watch gives you both on an AM/PM indicator that's coordinated with the primary dial at 2 o'clock. You'll note that the dial, featuring beautiful blue Dauphine hands and transferred indices, also has a romantic and vintage style railroad minute track outboard with the 1833 signature to remind you that this is an anniversary piece. The AM/PM indicator, which is hand finished with blue lacquer on the PM side and a tremblage finish on the AM side, is surrounded by bridges and plates that are themselves hand finished with a tremblage treatment. Now, you'll note when I turn the watch over, you can see more of the glory of this 592-part 88 pivot jewel movement. Note that that tremblage hand chiseling is present throughout the bridges, and it's separated by a narrow polished pathway from gorgeous mirrored anglage on the edge of every bridge. Now, it's important to note, and it's more evident from this angle, that the entire movement is constructed of what's known as Mi-Cort or German silver. Now, it's neither German nor silver, as it's a composite of copper, nickel, and zinc that endows the watch with robust resistance to corrosion and magnetism, but also that gorgeous golden hue that you don't get on conventional rhodium-plated brass. This watch pays deference to the 19th century pocket watches of its founder, and thus the Mi-Cort compound, which was used in pocket watches during that period, is employed extensively, both for its beauty and for its vintage nostalgic factor. Note that fine finish and mechanical excellence coexist. See the black polished cap at the base of the tourbillon cage beating away at 21,600 vibrations per hour at just the right angle, and we're achieving it here. That black polish absolutely blazes. And you'll note that Jaeger-LeCoultre did not shy away from interior angles on the bridges, considered to be one of the most difficult feats of finishing in high horology. Now, a watch like this is designed to be worn, and thus Jaeger-LeCoultre engineers practicality into it with a fully shock-protected flying tourbillon and, incredibly, 5-bar, 5 ATM, 50-meter water resistance. This is a watch that's designed to be worn. It's not designed to live out its life in a watch box or a safe. If you don't wear watches, why should they exist? And that existential question is answered in beautiful fashion by the Jaeger-LeCoultre Gyrotourbillon 3.